Things are still a little bit of a mess here at the Non-Glamorous Studios. They're non-glamorous. We got mess all over the place. It's still a construction zone, but the ceiling up here is pretty much finished, so that's cool. In the meantime, my office is upstairs. For this week, I've decided just to do like a best of the channel montage where I'm throwing together a lot of my favorite lessons about hand technique. Let me know if you enjoyed this, if you thought it was boring, lame, dumb, or cool, because I may or may not do some more of these in the meantime as I'm finishing up all of this craziness down here. There's an often overlooked, less talked about technique behind good timekeeping on the drums. Let's uncover this super practical tip that you can start practicing today. My hands are freezing. Maybe I should have left the heater on. Could literally be bundled up in jackets down here. I'd be comfortable, but it would look really weird. Oh well. You saw the clock in the thumbnail, and you're probably like, what's up with that? That's kind of a lame reference because, well, yeah, we gotta have better time the same way that a clock has good time. Well, I really want to make a deeper reference than that and reference something very specific about the clock that we want to do with our playing. But first, before getting into that, I want to really get into the core of what the lesson today is and talk about some hand technique stuff. So like I referenced there at the beginning of the video, there are different aspects to solid drumming, one of which is dynamics and playing with good steady dynamics. That's not what we're talking about today. That's a topic for another video. We can get way into this. Today we're specifically talking about time and a really important technique behind playing with good time that's often overlooked. Number 3 is we've got to use our fingers to increase the speed. So if we've got the grip down, we've got our fingers in place, things are loose and relaxed, then we can begin to actually use our fingers to move the stick even faster, however fast we need it to go for whatever we're playing. If you can play doubles on your leg or on a pillow or on a stack of towels, that means that those fingers are definitely working to create the rebound that doesn't exist. If you can do that, you're well on your way to using your fingers. The first exercise that I'll have students do, and one of my favorites, is where you just hold the stick by the butt end like this, and then hold your arm out. This might be out of the shot. There'll be some additional footage of this in case we need it. And then hold your arm straight out. You can look down your arm to really make sure that your wrist isn't moving and that your hand isn't moving and that it's literally just your fingers causing the stick to bounce up and to hit your arm. So it's basically an open, closed motion like that, building up that finger strength. I think literally going like this would be an even more basic way to practice this if you didn't have sticks in your hand. Then we can take that and basically apply it to actual playing by doing the French grip exercise where we're just propelling the stick using our fingers by playing a thumbs up position. We can play with each finger individually, working out each finger so we can discover which fingers are weak, which ones are strong, which ones need the extra work. And we can practice this on a pillow or on our legs or on a towel or whatever to really accelerate the strength building of those fingers. So let's talk a little more about this. First, let me show you some examples. You'll watch a normal, regular speed shot of me playing some singles and then some doubles, and then we'll watch it in slow-mo too, because what we want to zero in on is what do our hands need to be doing to allow for the smooth, natural motion of the sticks that will allow us to play whatever we want to play well. Once you get that going, once you're playing from your wrist, and maybe you already are, then you are actually well on your way to navigating around the kit smoothly because we're going to use our wrist to move as quickly and lazily as possible. So let me show you what I'm talking about these motions around the kit before I really talk too much about it, because if you see the example, it'll probably make a lot more sense. So let's check it out. Lay it on my snare. And so I just call this the French grip exercise. I did not come up with this. You can probably find a bunch of videos of Jojo Mayer doing this. I might have learned this technique from him as far as practicing finger stuff, and a lot of drummers do this, so this is nothing new. But if you haven't done this before, I encourage you to try it out. Practice doing this, basically. Most importantly, you're not moving your hand in relation to your arm. There's no wrist motion. It's purely finger driven. And you can go a little deeper with that and go finger by finger, isolate each finger. So we've got our pivot point here. We're going to use just the middle finger to propel the stick this time. I know you can kind of see all my fingers moving a little bit, but the only ones in contact with the stick are these first two and this one. Now we could also isolate ring finger and say, okay, just ring finger is going to drive it. Just pinky. So you can individually work those on each hand. You'll probably find that one hand is better at it than the other. I know for me, my left hand was actually better at it than my right, maybe because I'm left-handed and I naturally have more left-hand finger strength when I first started playing. So I just spent a lot of time with my right hand doing just that. And then all together, which is easier to go a little faster once you get them all together. Okay, so I mentioned earlier we'd wrap up with some practical exercises to practice on a pad that will translate well to the kit. And some of these you've already seen throughout the video. Really, there's nothing fancy that I'm doing most of the time in my pad practice. And honestly, when I sit down to play on a pad, a lot of times I'm just doing singles. I might do one hand first, one hand at a time and then alternating. What I'll do a lot is work on crescendos and decrescendos with the metronome at whatever the given tempo is. But I want to work on solidifying that relationship between time and dynamics to make sure I can get louder without getting faster, get quieter without getting slower. That's a really important fundamental skill that of course translates to any kind of instrument, any kind of music at all. I also do a lot of finger stuff, wrist workouts. I'll do what I call the French grip exercise, where I'm working out the fingers to really help strengthen my doubles and even out my doubles more. And so I'll do that on the workout surface of the 4-in-1 pad, and I'll flip it over and then work on the rebound, so work on the articulation and work on those details and playing quietly well, playing loudly well. So just basic things like that, and that's honestly about it. I'm not doing a lot of rudiments. What we need to do as drummers is practice on our pads what we're actually going to use on the actual kit. So I know that yes, it's easier to show you one right way to hold sticks than a dozen wrong ways. But there are certain pitfalls that a lot of pitfalls that a lot of drummers will run into, and certain things that I think many of us have been guilty of at some point or another. The trick with some of these is that you might not actually notice them, and so that's where it does kind of make sense to cover some of these wrong ways, because you might think that you've got everything right, but maybe you're not getting the results you want to get. So the first one is the classic pinky sticking out. This was one I was really guilty of when I first started playing. And I've noticed that even today, I'll have a tendency as I'm playing to start to stick out my right pinky, but it only happens when I'm playing thumbs up, more of like a French grip with my right hand. I think it's okay if, I know I'm kind of making excuses here for myself, but with your right hand, if you're playing more of a thumbs up, technically all your fingers are going to be sticking out anyways, right? Depending on how you're doing it, depending on how closed or open it is. And so I don't think it matters if a pinky's starting to stick out, because really all your fingers are sticking out very loosely. So I think that's why it feels natural to me to do that. Now, if I were playing this way, I'm playing more of a palms down and my pinky sticking out. Well, that's weird. That's a problem. That's something to think about. If you're playing more French, well, it's okay if fingers are kind of sticking out. But as soon as you're German, or American, somewhere in between, those fingers need to be wrapped around. And the reason why is because the pinky is a lot more powerful than you think it is. Really, this is a topic for another video, but you want to be able to use that pinky as you're playing, especially if you're playing doubles, because that's really the key to strong doubles. There's a lot of muscles here in your forearm controlling your pinky. So wrap it in, make sure you're using it. And here's a big one, squeezing too tight at the fulcrum. Squeezing right here between thumb and first finger rather than letting the stick rest here. And that's the kind of thing where really the big symptom, I guess, of that is that your sticks probably aren't going to be rebounding naturally. And so that's something to watch out for.